Do human beings pose a threat to Earth? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. Do human beings pose a threat to Earth? The last 100, 150 years, that's been a question at the forefront of the consciousness of humanity. Do we pose an actual threat to planet Earth? And the last 30 to 50 years, it has been at the forefront of many political movements. Famously, global warming, climate change, those are the two big ones. So the real question is, when we philosophically get into this, does the human populace pose a threat to the Earth itself? It's a real short philosophical episode to just come out and say no. No, we don't. It's kind of hilarious. It's kind of the height of human arrogance to suggest that we have any actual effect on the Earth itself. But let's get into it. So humans have been on the planet in, it's a debatable amount of time. We don't really know. There's a lot of theories. We don't have a human origin story. We don't have a confirmed human origin story that all the humans on the planet agree with, that's a whole different video. But what we generally agree on is that somewhere between 10 and 20,000 years ago, we started coming together in organized villages and societies and walled-in towns and whatnot, and started stockpiling food and having governments and living in what we would now consider to be civilization. And in that time, our industrial capabilities have grown exponentially, our destructive abilities have grown exponentially, our creative abilities have grown exponentially. Funny enough, our awareness and consciousness hasn't necessarily gone any further than any of the other ancient civilizations who had their seers and their mystics and their philosophers and their prophets and their messiahs and their oracles and knowers of the world. So that's kind of interesting. We haven't really advanced our consciousness beyond what a lot of civilizations already achieved. But we have, in the current iteration, achieved technological prowess beyond many of the civilizations, depending on how you scan and understand the nature of some of the more ancient societies coming out of Egypt and Mesopotamia, where there was well-documented off-planet technology all over the place, which modern-day humans are still trying to explain away. But all that being said, we come to a modern-day question of, do human beings pose a real threat to the Earth and its continued operation? I mean, no is the answer. When we start looking at what's occurred on Earth, right, even prior to humans, so we have the age of the dinosaurs, right, and the dinosaurs are on here for millions of years, and they're just going around being as savage as you can be, but they don't have any externalized technology that we know of. They're not really doing anything. What they're dealing with is just natural rhythms of the Earth, the volcanoes and floods and huge storms and earthquakes and just all the normal planetary stuff. And our version of events says that an asteroid or an off-planet body penetrated the Earth's atmosphere, collided with the surface, and created an extinction level event within the atmosphere. Okay. Now, right there, I think it's good to note that this event, this extinction level event that, according to science, nearly instantaneously wiped out the dinosaurs, who were nearly unwipeable, outable for millions of years, perfectly evolved for survival, essentially. Be tough to say they weren't. And in the blink of an eye, an asteroid, meteor, hits Earth, changes the chemistry of the atmosphere, and sends so much trauma shockwave through the Earth that is nearly instantaneously kills everything on it, right? Like a few things survive here and there, but mainly extinction level event. That's in the books. That's what we believe at this point in time. That event did not stop Earth. That event did not kill off the Earth. Killed most of the other stuff off it, but didn't hardly put a dent in Earth, right? Earth kept spinning around, regenerated, brought new forms of life back up, bigger, better, badder, here it is, Earth 2.0. And now we're at our stage where the main, the main assertion of people on Earth who are putting it to the forefront of the consciousness that we might irreparably damage the operations of Earth, its natural rhythms and systems, are saying that the main cause that's going to become catastrophic for Earth are, by comparison, minuscule waste products that are being created by industry and corporations and military industrial complex and commuting traffic and cows farting. Okay? So that's what they're saying. So in terms of when you're looking at the impact of these events, you're talking about there's an extinction level event that occurs that literally barely puts a dent in Earth's operation. And 50 to 60 years of people putting up, polluting the environment to a degree. And I'm not justifying polluting the environment. All that should stop. But, so that's just the part that the modern humans bring into the conversation about we're going to destroy the Earth. It's just like this tiny little bit amount of pollution that we're doing. That's not even in relation, like, we're going to unpack this, right? Like, so that same group of people who's saying that, like, these small amount of emissions, who many of their corporate partners are the ones responsible for allowing the emissions in the first place. Those are the same people who spent a lot of the 20th century testing nuclear weapons indiscriminately, both subterranean, terrestrial, and in the atmosphere. Excuse me again, I'm sorry. So this group who is bringing to the discussion that commuting traffic and farting cows are going to like upend Earth's ecosystem are the same people who spent half a century detonating as many nuclear bombs wherever they wanted, as destructively as they wanted, and make no mention of that. And, oh, by the way, we survived all those things. Like, the Earth, once again, barely put a dent in it. All those nukes barely put a dent in it. Which, once again, not justifying those absolutely, those tests, I'm so really sorry. Those tests absolutely should not have been done in the manner they were done. Absolutely not. Like, completely immoral to do what they did. And not a fan of polluting the Earth, especially when you're testing it out to figure out how to murder other human beings. It's immoral in so many ways. Point being, the absolute value of that testing is that it didn't put any real dent into the ecosystem of Earth. And that was, as far as we know, that's as much damage as a human can do to the reality intentionally, is to construct a nuclear weapon and then set it off. And they didn't just set it off in one place. They experimented. They had a program called Operation Argus down in Brazil where they intentionally set off huge nuclear weapons in the atmosphere and the stratosphere to see if they could actually, affect the atmosphere itself, to see if they could get any sort. They were trying to go for military benefit, but they're deliberately trying to affect it. And they still couldn't do anything to, move the needle on the ecosystem, the equilibrium for Earth. And those are the best shots we got. Now, when we compare all these nuclear weapons testing to volcanic eruptions and tidal waves and other naturally occurring phenomena on Earth, when you look at the fallout, the nukes, the early nukes were super bad for radiation, but otherwise, they kind of pale in comparison to the system harm, or the system disruption is a better way to put it, from like volcanic eruptions, tidal waves, tectonic shifting, all these other organic shifts in the Earth and natural phenomenon. They dwarf what the human contributions are to systemic disruption. So then it comes back to, okay, fine, like if if we accept what I'm saying by comparison in terms of just trying to measure or intellectually conceptualize systemic disruption to the Earth as a planetary ecosystem, and we see that what humans can do to it, it pales in comparison to what Earth does to itself, and that either way, it doesn't overall disrupt the Earth, and that even if we thought either one of those were, when we go back to an actual extinction level event that we agree is an extinction level event, that didn't even stop the Earth's system. What we're concerned with is, do we have the ability to disrupt the atmosphere to an extent that kills ourselves off? Can we pollute the atmosphere and the environment to an extent that we create our own extinction level event? And even in that scenario, well, the answer is really no. When you run the projectable models, considering if all of the inventories of all of the mad governments of the world went full nuclear Armageddon, full bioweapon Armageddon, like they just unleashed everything they had, opened up the inventories, and some like last gasp madman let it all rip. And like they did everything. They like melted, they like let all the nuclear reactors, go off. They shot all the missiles. They let all the bioweapons open. They like, everything. They just let everything go to hell all at once, for whatever reason, right? Even in that wild scenario where they just let everything go, there's still going to be enough humans to survive to repopulate the species. Like the species itself will still survive, because on a planet with like 8 billion people, even if you like let everything out and everything goes crazy, you're still at a minimum going to have like 500 billion people survive, like in caves, on islands, in remote areas of the mountains, like in bunkers, like you can do the math. And so you're for sure going to have enough of the cross-section of the population across the world that the human species will survive, that it will repopulate, it'll propagate again. I'm sure scientists have done all the numbers on it. I'm sure they know exactly, how few humans you need per square mile, like what the genetic diaspora is you need to repopulate, like all the different 128-point model you need to figure out if in a post world, how many humans and how many like demo you need to like repopulate and what the general topography needs to be. But basically, you can't do it. You basically can't extinct humans with what we have in the inventory, even if you let it all rip. And you certainly can't stop the operations of Earth. You can't even like really disrupt them from that much, to be honest. When you look at from the global perspective, from a planetary perspective, you can make it crappy for a little bit, but you can't disrupt it. That's essentially impossible. So, yeah, do humans pose a threat to Earth? No. Do we pose a threat to ourselves? Yes and no. We could wipe a lot of ourselves out, but we don't even have what it takes to make ourselves go extinct. We just really have what it has to make ourselves miserable. And so it's really just a question about, where do we want the quality of life to be? And that is under our conscious control. And controlling quality of life consciously is usually best served with a harmonious perspective. And, you know, it might be time that we let this sort of doomsday scenario, this like extremely human-centric, egocentrical concept that we can do some sort of lasting damage to our planet, that we let that go. It seems to be somebody's incorrect power analysis, so they can go around saying, oh, well, since you know that like we can damage the earth, I'm here to give you a solution so we don't. Well, you can't. All you can really do is just make life miserable for other humans. So when those people come forward and say that sort of thing, really what they're saying, they're not saying like, oh, I have power over the earth, which they don't, or I have power over the human race, which they really don't. What they're really saying is, I have the power to mind control you, make you miserable, and I can make you have a really bad outlook on life, and I have some minor abilities to make you not enjoy your life. And wouldn't you like it if I didn't? So they're basically trying to blackmail you, essentially, because they really can't do anything to the earth. It's too cool. It's too dope. All right. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner, and have fun.